Hey, welcome to this video. Today we're going to deploy our expenses application on Azure. If you have been following along with the series, you know that our application consists of a React.js along with Redux project, a .NET Core API, and a SQL database. I encourage you to go back and watch those if you haven't already. Heads up, this is going to be more of a manual deployment. We're not going to be looking into CI/CD on this particular video. I am very excited to show you the deployment process. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe and let's get started. There's going to be 4 steps to this video. So first step is to move our database connection string to app settings. So right now we have this value hard-coded here. There's not really a nice way to inject our connection string. So we'll have to move this out of the way and put it to app settings. And also we're going to make a little bit of change to the code so that whenever we run our application, the migrations get applied automatically for us. So we don't have to worry about doing like update database or anything like that. This way, whenever we have our application deployed in production, we don't really have to mess with database. As long as our application starts running, it's going to apply the migration by itself, and our schemas are going to look great. The second step is to deploy our SQL database. Third step is to deploy our web API. And then fourth and last step is to deploy our frontend. Okay, so now let's get started. So if we go to SQL Server Object Explorer, what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete my expenses DB just to make sure that when it does get populated later, it populates it properly. So delete and close existing connections. I'm going to click OK. And there you go. Let's go ahead now and copy this connection string. And let's head over to our app settings.json. And up here, we're going to do connection string. There you go, autocomplete. And I'm going to say something like DB connection string. Might be a little redundant, but that's fine. And I'm going to paste the code here. There you go. Save this file and let's set back to app.db context. And let's get rid of this. And we now need to create an empty constructor. So we're going to do public app.db context. And this takes a DB context options. We're going to take an app.db context options and just call our base and pass in options. That's it. Get rid of this new line here. Save this file. Now what we have to do is pass on the connection string. So let's go to startup. And under configure services, so we can do it up here. We can say services that add DB context, and we're going to do app DB context, which is our context. We want to pass in options, and we're going to say options that use SQL. Okay, it should be capital. Use SQL Server. That's fine for that. It's got to be using Microsoft Entity Framework Core. Make sure you're using that. And we pass in configuration that get connection string, which we just moved to our app settings. And we're going to give it the name we put, which is DB connection string. Okay, make sure we close this. And that is it. So essentially what we have done is that we are loading our connection string from our app settings JSON. Let's now make sure our migrations run automatically as soon as our application starts. So let's head over to program. Let's clean this up a little bit. Okay. So right here, we're doing a create host builder. We're then doing the build and then finally running. So we're going to break this up a little bit. So let me start off by chopping this real quick. Just put it here. I'm going to comment it out. So let's say we get the host here. Then we're going to get service. We'll have to parse this to an iService scope factory. So let me So let's use using Microsoft.extensions.dependency injection. Make sure we're doing that. And we're going to do host that services that get service. And it's going to get a type. So we're going to do type of iService scope factory. Once we have that, we're going to do using, and we're going to do var db. It's going to be equal to service that create scope that service provider that get service, and we're going to pass app db context, which is our context, and open close parentheses. Let me make sure we are importing this. So using expenses.db. And in here, we're going to do db.database.migrate. And that's pretty much all we have to do. Let's make sure we are using Microsoft.entity framework core. And at the very end, we're going to do host.run. There you go. Cool. Don't worry too much about all the little details going on here. This is a one-time thing that you set up whenever you create your project, and that's it. You don't do it again unless you create another project and you get to do the setup again. So don't get too hung up on all these little details. If it's like overwhelming, I get it. There's a lot of documentation online for all this kind of stuff. So with that said, let's test it out. Let's see if it works. So remember, we had deleted our database, so we don't have anything here. So let's see what happens. So I'm going to click run, and we get an exception for keyword not supported @. So that's good to know. So let's head over to app settings and get rid of it. Go into app settings, and no wonder it's not working. Probably if you go back to the video, you're going to see that this got, for some reason, imported automatically for me. So I'm going to get rid of this and the @ and all this stuff. That's extra stuff that we don't need. And let's run it again. And our web API is up. That's really good news. So let's expand this. Let's say we do sign up. So try out. I'm gonna get rid of ID, and then I'm gonna put some information here and click on execute. I'm getting a 201 and I got a token back. So that's awesome. And if we go to SQL Server Object Explorer, and let's make sure we refresh this, expand it again, we're going to see our expenses DB is here. And if we expand that, we can see the tables. Let's say we go to expenses. There's nothing there, but the table is there. There you go. And if we go to users, view data, everything is there. So that means our changes worked. So this is awesome. Okay, so now we're moving on to our deployments. And the first deployment we're going to be doing is our SQL database. I am in portal.azure.com. If you haven't created an account yet, please do so. You're probably going to get some credit, hopefully. In my case, I'm not eligible for that credit anymore since I opened my account a while back. So I am going with the pay-as-you-go pricing. So our API, our web API is going to be completely free, hosted regardless. So that's awesome. And also our front-end code is going to be hosted completely free, no cost at all. So the only thing I'm going to be paying for is the database, and that's going to be $5 a month. Which honestly, given the industry, I think $5 a month for a SQL database is a very reasonable price. So you're looking at my dashboard now, but once you log in, you can go here and we're going to go to SQL databases. Okay, so we're going to click on create. You're going to pick your subscription. In my case, I only have this one. It's pay as you go. And we're going to pick a group. We currently don't have any group. This is a default one. So let's create a group. And this is for essentially, it holds related resources. So let's call it expenses resource group. Hit OK. Let's call it database name. So we can say expenses DB. Let's create a server since we don't have one yet. So right here on the right, let's call it expenses DB server. we're going to have an admin server login. So I'm going to put mine. Make sure you put yours. And I'm going to put my password. Okay, this needs to have only lowercase. So I'm going to do expenses, DB server. There you go. Hit OK. And it got automatically set for us. So say no to elastic pool. That's okay. Very important here, configure database. Let's click here. And now let's click on purpose. So we're going to do basic. There you go. So basic is going to be $5 a month estimated. So that's the cheapest options we can get. So let's click on apply. And if we scroll down a little bit, this is normally the cheapest option, locally redundant backup storage. So let's click on that and let's hit next, networking. So we're going to keep this as is for now. Let's review and create. Let's make sure it's $5. Okay, looks good. And I'm going to hit on create. It will take a little while, but then you will see something like your deployment is complete. So that's pretty good. Let's go to resource. And one thing we need to set is the firewall. So right now, this is on its own little island. So we need to be able to access it. So let's click on allow Azure services and resources to access this server. So say yes. And also let's click on add client IP. So this is my IP. This way I can access it. And let's click on save. Now if we go back to our dashboard, so if we click here and go to dashboard, then we can see our expenses DB. So congrats, you just deployed your SQL database. Let's go on now and deploy our web API. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on all resources here. This way I can see everything here, and then I can see all the stuff we have. We have the expenses DB and we have our server, which is great. We're going to create a web app. And here we're going to pick our subscription again. We're going to get our resource group. We already created one, which is expenses resource group. So let's select that one. Let's have a name for it. So as you can see, it's going to be whatever name we put, that Azure websites.net. I'm going to call this expenses API. Check mark. So that's good. I can have it. Publish. Let's do code. Let's select the runtime stack. So we're going to do .NET Core 3.1. Then we're going to get Windows. That's good. The region, pick something that is closest to you. That would make it a bit easier, or I mean, a bit faster than something, say, very far away. So something close to me is East USA. So I'm going to pick that. Let's change the size. And right here, we're going to go to dev test. And we're going to pick the F1, which is totally free. Obviously, you can pick something else if you want. In the future, you may want to go to D1 or B1. But for our purposes right now, F1 is completely free. So that's what I'm going to pick. I'm going to hit apply. And let's go ahead and create a service plan. So I want to call it expenses service plan. Actually, I think I can do capitals here. So expenses service plan. And I'm going to click OK. And notice how this changed. So that's what I want to be mindful to you in case you change this after. You change back to standard. So make sure you change size. You go to dev test and F1. There you go. So free F1. Let's hit on review and create. And let's hit on create. And now it says your deployment is complete after a few minutes. Keep in mind, there's actually no code here yet. We just have this service up, but our code is not here yet. So let's go to resource. And let's go to configuration. And now we need to add the variables that we need to inject. So we have JWT secret, JWT issuer, and client ID. So these we need to have as environment variables so that when our app runs, everything runs fine and nothing is missing. Let's load up our environment variables. So let's click on new application setting, and we can start off with JWT secret. And this is going to be our secret, obviously. And in our case, on localhost, we had like this is my JWT token secret. So we can have an actual secret here. Since this is, I'm recording this, I'm just going to put kind of the same thing. Okay, I'm going to click OK. I'm going to add another one. This is going to be for JWT issuer. So for this, I'm going to say expenses. Click OK. And lastly, this is for the client ID. So client ID. And I'm going to copy and paste my client ID. There you go. I'm going to click OK. So right now we have all the environment variables, same ones we have on our project. So that's cool. The only thing we're missing is, as you can tell probably by now, is the connection string. So we're almost going to do that, but not yet. So let's, at least not here. So let's save this and continue. And it's now time to go to Visual Studio. Okay, so we're back at Visual Studio. So what I want to do is go to the expenses.web API, right click on it and go to publish. The target is going to be Azure. So let's click next. Let's pick on Azure App Services Windows. That's the one we created. Next. And you can see my subscription pops up, and I'm going to click on Expenses API, which is the one we just created. I'm going to click on next, and we're going to go with the first option. We're not going to go CI/CD. And let's click on finish. Now it's not published yet. It says ready to publish. And let's quickly review. It looks all good. So if we go here and we go to edit, and we expand right here databases, we can see that it found database connection. So here's what I want to do. I'm going to cancel that real quick. I'm going to go down to database, and I'm going to go to configure, and I'm going to go to Azure SQL Database. Next. And there you go. It found expenses DB. So I'm going to click on that one. I want to click next. And here is going to ask for the database connection string name. So this is the same name we put on the app settings JSON, which is DB connection string. So DB connection string, there you go. That one. And here you're going to put your username. So I put this. Here you should put your password. Put in mine, make sure it's right. And that's pretty much it. Next, I'm going to uncheck this. Finish. Okay, successful. Close. And now our database is also configured. So if I scroll up, I'm going to hit on publish. And after some time, it popped up this page, expenses API.azurewebsites.net. So all we got to do now is go all the way to the end /swagger. So hit that and ta-da, our page is up. This is awesome. We just deployed our expenses API and it's connected to our database. Let's make sure it works. So let's click on authentication, sign up. Let's do a tryout. Gonna get rid of ID. I'm gonna create my username, password. I'm gonna do password. And that's it. I'm gonna click on execute, see if it works. Okay, and I got a 201 created. That's awesome. If we go back to the portal and we click on refresh and continue on our expenses API configuration, we're gonna see that the V connection string got automatically populated for us. So that's pretty cool. So right now we have our DB deployed and we have our web API deployed. The only thing we're missing is the front end. So let's do that. Let's go over to dashboard, or actually let's go to the menu. Let's go to all resources and we can see all the stuff we have in here now. And let's click on create. And we're gonna create a web app. And here we're gonna pick our resource group. It's gonna be expense resource group. And then here we're gonna call it like expenses front end, maybe. Okay, let's click on code, runtime. Let's go with Node. So we can do Node 14 is fine. Let's do it for that. Let's do Windows. Let's pick the region again. I want to do East and the plan. So I'm going to do the same thing. So this is the free F1 and I'm going to do review and create. I'm going to click on create. While that's deploying, I went ahead and opened expenses.frontend on Visual Studio Code. And what I want to do is I want to open the .env file. And in here, since we're doing this manual deploy, we need to update this URL. So this normally points to our local host 44373. Your port might be different, but this is the port of the backend service, the API. So now, since our API is hosted in that Azure websites.net, we need to update this. So this is going to be https:// we called it expenses API.Azure websites.net. So now we're going to be making requests to our Azure API instead of our local API. So let's save this file and let's go to command right here and do npm run build. And this is going to run a production build for us. Once that finishes, we should see things under the build directory right here. All these things, we're going to see all these things here. Okay, let's head back to Azure portal. Okay, we can see that our deployment is complete. So let's go to resource. And now if we, actually, let's click on this first. And we should see the default page we have. This is the default. Let's go back again. And if we scroll down to, let's keep going, advanced tools, here you go. Advanced tools, click on go. It's loading up. Okay. In here, we want to go to debug console, CMD. We want to go to site. And this is where we want to go, www.root. And in here, what we want to do is we want to drop all the files we have in here. Actually, I want to get rid of this one. So we want to go back to our build directory on the expenses.frontend project and basically drop all of our files here. Like I said before, after doing the npm run build, we should see this build directory under our project, expenses.frontend. If you go inside build, we should see all this stuff in here. So this is the stuff we're going to drag and drop. As you can see here, I'm going to select all of these and I'm just going to drop it. Once it completes, let's head over to the site again. So we can go to, actually I have it open. So I can refresh this. And ta-da, our front end is also deployed. So let's go ahead and let's do a quick sign up. Or actually let's sign in because I created an account earlier. If I can remember my password anyways. And there you go. We are in. So let's say groceries, $5. Let's do add. and we added successfully our expense. So this is pretty cool. We can edit, we can delete it, and it should all work now. Now I want to bring to your attention a small caveat, which is we haven't configured a service to handle routing properly. So if we were to click on logout, it wouldn't find the resource. Whenever it's /sign-in, it doesn't know what to do with that. Same if we do sign up, it doesn't know what to do with that. So if we go home, we can sign up again. Sign in, and we're logged in. So this is due to a missing configuration. We're not gonna go over the configuration itself, but I put it under expenses.frontend. If you go into public, this is our web config that we need to drop in the same place where we dropped our code. So if we were to get this and drop it here, as we did for the rest of the code, once it's uploaded here, we can go back to our application and we can click on logout, and routing happens. And like I said, this is a server configuration, so this doesn't really have to do with how we deploy the app. We had to do this regardless since we're using React Router. And with this, we have reached the end of this video. I want to thank you all for watching. Hopefully after this video, deploying a full application is not too scary for you. Thank you so much for the support to the channel. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and like this video if you enjoyed it. I'll catch you all on the next one.